Hey, what's going on, guys? So there is a pretty interesting update for Silent Hill F, and it is one of those patches that is less about changing the core game and more about giving players something extra to mess around with. The big addition here is a new cosmetic called Crimson Butterfly, which is part of a crossover with Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake. And the funny part is, this is not one of those updates where they just toss in a costume and call it a day. The costume itself is clearly meant to be a nod to Mio Amakura, which makes the whole thing feel a little more thoughtful than just a random skin drop. It changes Hinako's appearance in game, so this is not a tiny cosmetic menu item you forget about 5 minutes later. It is something you actually notice while playing, especially because Silent Hill F already leans so hard into atmosphere and character presentation. Now, the way you get to use it is simple, which I appreciate. You can select it when starting a new game, or you can switch to it later by using Change Costume while resting at a Hokora. That means you are not locked into one decision forever, and you do not have to restart your whole playthrough just to see what the new look is like. I always think that is the better approach for stuff like this, because people like trying cosmetics out without turning it into a whole production. There's also a small but important detail here, which is that the Crimson Butterfly cosmetic is available to all owners of Silent Hill F, as long as they update to the required game version or later. So this is not one of those weird bonus items hidden behind a deluxe edition wall or some confusing extra purchase. If you already own the game and you're up to date, you should be good to go. The crossover itself makes sense too, because Konami is clearly leaning into this idea of Japanese horror games connecting with each other. On the Fatal Frame side, they also released a free collaboration DLC for Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake, and that version includes Silent Hill F-inspired costumes for Mio Amakura and Mayu Amakura. So it is not just one game borrowing from the other for a quick marketing push. It is more like both sides are trading looks and ideas, which is kind of fun if you are into both series. And that is probably the most interesting part of this update. On the surface, a costume update sounds pretty simple, but when you look at the crossover angle, it makes the update feel a lot more deliberate. Silent Hill already has that heavy, eerie, psychological horror style, and pairing it with Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake feels like one of those matches that just makes sense immediately. It is not trying to force some wild crossover that does not fit the tone. It is staying in the same lane and giving players a cosmetic that actually matches the mood of the game. I also like that the costume is tied to an iconic character reference instead of just being a generic alternate outfit. Mio Amakura is a pretty recognizable name for anyone who has spent time with the Fatal Frame series. So the whole thing lands better because there is actual crossover identity behind it. You are not just getting a new color swap or a random seasonal outfit, it is a callback that horror fans will notice right away. So yeah, that is the update in plain terms. New cosmetic, new crossover, easy unlock conditions, and a nice little nod to another major Japanese horror series. It is the kind of update that does not reinvent anything, but it does add a cool reason to hop back in and check how Hinako looks in the new outfit. And for a game like this, where mood matters so much, even a costume can end up feeling more meaningful than it first sounds.